Right then, Chris. So let's kick off. So 18 years of Bluescamp. I think you were in from the very beginning. No, you weren't. You missed one of the years out, I think, didn't you? Right at the beginning.
The very beginning. I was there for the first 2 or 3, and then I missed one or two, I think, for being away the army.
Yeah.
Definitely there from the beginning at Cranbrook.
That's right.
When we started, and I think my initial thoughts was really good to see the passion that's in people when they arrive. If you imagine people going to see a doctor and looking a little bit concerned in the waiting room, well, this is completely the opposite. It's absolute people turning up with all their Gucci guitars and equipment, whether they can play or not, just looking thoroughly excited and pleased to be amongst like-minded.
Look, some of them look terrified, I must say, actually. Because obviously nobody really knows what we're going to do unless they've been there before. That's the thing. They know what to expect. But yeah, that's funny. And you're right that you can often see the people who aren't the musicians because they've got the better gear. You can always tell the musicians because they're the ones who've got the terrible gear, generally. But so I mean, in the early days, it was particularly right at the very beginning. It was just such a it's like we were making it up as we went along. Although, of course, we'd all taught, so it wasn't that we didn't know about the teaching, but it was about how we were going to get this dynamic working, where you got people playing almost within the first half an hour to now.
We've always been very practical as people, as teachers and as sort of musos. But as time has progressed, we've been less and less talky and more about people playing.
Yeah.
The things we've definitely never really done is lecture people. Apart from things like don't leave your guitar upright, leant against the wall. It's bound to fall over. Apart from things like that, we're not really a lecturing group of tutors or coaches. Much more, let's get on and play.
Yeah, that was one of the things, actually, because right at the very beginning, we had a slightly different team, didn't we? And we had a couple of people who were sort of full of the idea that they should be telling everybody what to do. And that wasn't a good thing, I don't think. Because what I think became clear very early on, although, of course, I'd been doing this with my own teaching, is that people are often more musical than they realise. There are certain natural things about language which is musical. Language has dynamics in it, and it has timing and rhythm to it. Because you don't hear people talking like robots, unless it's Stephen Hawking type of thing. People have got a very dynamic range within their vocal, which is actually very, very melodic. So we've all got a pulse, unless we're dead, of course. So there are certain natural things that you realise as a musician you have. But if you're coming at it from an intellectual point of view, you don't realise those things. So it's a case of really finding out what people can do from the sort of thing of not even like they know a load of chords. It's not even that, is it? sometimes it's just allowing people to realise they can play in time, if as long as they don't think too much.
Yeah, we've had people come who've received birthday presents or Christmas presents, and they've been a bit shocked because they don't play anything. So when they've had a sort of a gift that say, yeah, you just won yourself a weekend at Bluescamp, either in Cranbrook or Tunbridge, and they turn around and say to their other half, yeah, that's great, but I don't actually play or sing anything. But then they come and then they realise that they are quite, like you say, they are quite musical. They can do something. They can sing, or they can stand up, and then they tend to come back another time, another year later, or they do definitely get something out of it.
Yes, yes. In fact, in a way, sometimes it's actually easier for somebody who's never played anything, because they don't have any beliefs about what is, what they're doing, and they're thrown in the deep end. As long as if you give them a bass or something, so they can do something pretty much straight off. You could even do it with guitar. If you tuned a guitar up to a chord, and then you played a song, just had all those type of chords in it, type of thing. If it's tuned to A or something like that, and all they have to do is bar the strings, they could do something. And I think this is that is often a revelation to people, which is really fascinating when you see that happen. I mean,
yeah. If you then take that on to, let's say you give someone 2 chords and they've learned 2 chords, well, that's another 50 odd songs they've learned, and then as soon as you can stretch that to 3 chords, well, that's it. You're on the world tour.
You're there. You're very definitely there.
Drop and people say, "Oh, well, is that song got the same 3 chords then?" And so is that song, and this one's the same, but they're just in a different order. And yeah, that's it.
And the interesting thing with that is, I mean, obviously with keyboards, if you've got people who can play something in the just chords in the key of C, so it's all the white notes, you can, and there's the magic compose button. They're well and truly a white.
Yeah.
Now there was one year quite early on, we had somebody who was she had classical lessons. Did she get up to grade 8 or something? But of course she couldn't improvise. Do you remember that?
Yeah, did you say piano?
Yeah, I think she'd learned classical piano or something. But she had to I think we taught her how to improvise. And that was the thing that really was interesting. Because we just got her to play in the key of C and make nothing up. And even though it was like the white notes, she was having real problems making sense of just using the notes and using her ear, from what I can remember. I'm not sure.
That's quite. We've just spoken about people that can't play, and then coming and being able to do something, and then you get the other end of the spectrum where people are amazing kind of virtuosos, but they've never done anything in a band, and you almost have to deconstruct them before they do anything.
Yes.
And to keep it just really simple.
Yes. So that's interesting. That's their learning becomes a problem within that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether I'm getting a bit of check from my end, because there's a little bit of an echo going on, and it might be.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay.
Okay.
So, any other people watching, we're doing the normal. Chris is in France, and Vic is in somewhere, but in England.
I'm in Kent at the moment.
Kent.
I can be virtually anywhere at the moment.
Yeah. But that's another nice thing of Bluescamp, is it has been quite international. And I'm not talking about France and England. We've had people from Italy, I think come over.
Yeah, Netherlands,
Germany, I think we've had.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and you've had somebody from America and
from the States, and so that's quite good as well. It just shows that it's, music truly is it does really break all barriers.
It does.
Well,
so the France blues camp, which you've run for a few years, obviously we did a France one a number of years, right? Didn't we?
Yeah.
Which was interesting because it's a slightly different sort of beast, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, what did you find? Because yours has been quite successful in that it's really getting people playing a bunch of songs and then gigging to an unsuspecting French audience.
Yeah, well, for me, it's all about having an objective, and we can all sit in a living room and play, or headphones on and play, and that's all very nice. And then we can go around a friend's house and play together, or and that's all very good as well. But when you then say, right, well, you're going to perform live, and it's not just a barbecue to your friends or your family, but it's to a genuine, real audience, then the importance just rises rapidly. Stress levels rise rapidly. Ability has to match all those rising things, and then there's a lot of intricate sort of detail that then comes out of the woodwork in terms of what's maybe you take for granted when you're going out playing, and so for example you'll with a spare guitar, strings break or something happens, and whilst pedal boards are really good and having massive amplifiers might be great, but it's not brilliant when you've got to get in a car and go somewhere and then transport it somewhere else,
And the other interesting one is if you're playing port somewhere and you're using somebody else's gear, and you've got to get around this thing of you're not being plugging into your favorite pedal or even your favorite amp, and you've got to get your sound from somebody else's gear.
Yeah,
and that's a good one with France, because obviously sometimes you'll use other gear, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, I have I've got a little thing this weekend, shall we say, in the village where I live. There's a flower festival. Every year I get to play, and they're using my keyboard. So there's a lady who I have lessons with, and she has specifically asked to have her remaining 2 lessons at my house so she can use a keyboard to get used to the feel, because it feels different to her keyboard. And so when you're doing all this stuff for real, unfortunately there's no excuses. You can't turn up somewhere and go, well, that's not really what I'm used to. That's why I made all those mistakes. It's got to get...
Exactly. This is interesting, because obviously things are getting even more sort of technical now, like sort of inner ears, plugging direct into it, straight into a desk or whatever. And I think all of those things ultimately moves you away from something that particularly guitarists have got used to, which is like, I've got my amp, which has got all my effect in the amp type of thing. And I've always sort of said, never get an amp that does that. Because what happens if you haven't got it? You've certainly got to be able to do old school, what's your guitar sound like through that amp. period. And you get a sound that is okay without all the gadgetry. And again, that's one of the things I think, again with keyboards, what happens if you've just got a piano and you haven't got the fancy patches and all the rest of it? I mean, it's different if you're gigging with a band, but if you're doing those type of gigs, which is really about, you've stripped a song right back to its basics, and it's about the performance of the song. It's not really about, I've got this fancy little twiddly bit here type of thing with this interesting sound, And I think all of that is really good for people to get their head about, the creative bit, about what you do with the song. So one of the things that often shocks people, I think, when we do stuff, is what liberties we take with pieces of music, where you can just sort of rip the middle of a song out because it's actually too difficult to do in the period of time that you've got, and segue direct into another song.
Yeah.
And then come back out of that into that original song, and you've avoided all the awkward stuff, but it makes it sound like you've done some amazing sort of musical, artistic statement. And all you've done is just made it easy to play that song. Because nobody ever sort of thinks, oh, they missed that bit out because it's really difficult to do. It never occurs to the audience that you've done that. And I've often thought it's quite interesting, this idea that people have almost got about, I call them the note police. It's like, oh, are you allowed to do that? It's like, well, who's going to stop you? The note police, are they going to come in and arrest you because you haven't played those extra bars in the middle?
Well, yeah, we've had this argument we've had arguments with people who have discussed things like, well, when we're doing a particular cover, the original doesn't do that.
Exactly.
And we're not learning it exactly.
No.
For God's sake, you learn it exactly how it is. It's a bit of a waste of time, really, because interpret it your way.
Exactly. And I think people find that really difficult. And I've always, we've spoken about this a lot, two of us, about psychologically, how that happens. It's almost like, because they've been at school, everything they do is in a straight line. Like when they read a book for English literature or something like that, or something, they'll start at the beginning, go all the way through to the end, and you think, well, it would be actually better if you're studying this because you want to understand the piece, the book, and you think, and it's part of that. Read the end first. So that as you read the story, then everything that's happening in the storyline becomes more obvious if you know how it ends. And when I say that to people, it's like, oh, I've never thought of it that way. It's like, well, why didn't your English teacher tell you it? Because it makes sense. It's like watching a film the second time, you see all the important bits because it all makes sense to you. And you think, so all this sort of thing of things being done in a straight line, like you can't do it any other way, is sort of odd. And one of the things I think is so great about music, and particularly creatively when you write songs, you never do it in a straight line. You get a bunch of chords, and they might be the chords for the middle eight. They might be for the bridge section. You might get them first. Your chorus might turn up before the verse. It doesn't come out in a straight line, does it? The lyrics never come out in a straight line. So why would you do anything in a straight line when you're being creative? And I think that is a revelation to a lot of people. And it's like that sort of artistic way of, the creative way of thinking is just not. It's not sort of. It's lateral, isn't it? It's not vertical. It's lateral thinking, where things can come at you in all sorts of different ways. And I think a lot of people get a lot out of that, not just musically, but just in sort of critical thinking, that they realise that there are answers that they probably can't see because they're thinking in a straight line.
Yeah, something that's just come into my head. It's when we do the final performance and we get families coming to see, and you get sons and daughters and wives especially, and you can see them seeing their other half, either husband, wife, or son or daughter, and you can see on their faces they didn't really realise that their family member who was participating in Blues Camp was capable of what they were doing and enjoying it so much, and they realise that that is such an important part.
Yes, exactly that.
I think you're breaking up a little bit here. I don't know whether I'm still hearing you, but carry on talking.
Yeah, the family members realising.
Yeah. There was a lad who came from a public school who I'd taught guitar, and he turned up, and this lad was in the choir, you know, at a chorister at an independent school, and when they did that performance, his mother came up to me at the end and she said, "Wow, I didn't realise he could sing like that." Now that's interesting. That he was in a choir in a cathedral school, and yet this idea that he being able to get up and sing in front of a band in a contemporary style was like he was a different person. And I just thought that's.
Unless you can show people, unless you can show your family that, they're not going to be as supportive and back up. They would be, you know, when you do it.
Yeah, that's right. It's amazing, isn't it? It's incredible. Right then, Chris, we'll sign off there, I think, because we've got about half an hour in there. And I'm not quite sure what's going on with the signals. You might be absolutely fine, but it sounds a bit distant to me. So that's really cool. So we'll be seeing you soon because you'll be coming over. So that'd be good. Good to catch up. And we've got some projects on, which is nice. I've been listening to those tracks. They sound quite good. So we're working on an album, aren't we? And then hopefully we'll catch up in France at some point as well. All right? All right. Speak soon then. Don't disappear though.